So problem 73 in chapter 14. I'm going to get a new slide or a new page here, right? My way. There we go. All right. And chapter 14, problem 73 says, Sienna Industries, a sole proprietorship, right, sold 1231 assets, 1231 assets during 2018. Data on these property dispositions as follows. And they set up a nice chart for us that we'll try to duplicate here. If you get a problem like this on the exam, which is likely, then you may need to set up a chart like this or continue a chart that's given. And then the questions are the questions we suggested. Determine the amount of the gain, and then the character, is it ordinary or capital? And then the second question really is asking about the 73B question, the tax rate. So let's take these assets one at a time. We've got a rack here, right? Okay. And they tell us that the cost was $100,000. It was depreciated by $62,000. And that gives us, well, then it's sold for $85,000, all right, which is really the amount realized, isn't it? $85,000 because they didn't give us any selling costs. And our gain then, or loss, right, gain or loss, that they don't give us, that's what we're adding now to the chart, is what? 85 minus 38, right? Because it's cost minus depreciation gives us adjusted basis. That gives us a gain of 47. Right? 47, if my math is right here. Yep, I think it is. All right, then we get the next question. That's the amount of the gain. The next question is that ordinary or capital? Well, this is a 1231 asset, right? It's also a 1245 asset. 1231 is what? Depreciable personalty used in the trade or business, or realty used in the trade or business. 1245 is basically personalty. Under 1245, we're supposed to recapture all the depreciation, the 62 if we can. But we only have 47 a game, so we can't recapture all the 62. But that's 62 turns that 47 into ordinary income, right? It's all ordinary income. There is no 1231 gain, right? Because it's all been recaptured as ordinary income. Next asset. And they made this problem too easy, so then we work at the way they gave it to us, and then we have to change it a bit. Most of the time when I'm complaining about the problems, I think they've changed them to make them too easy. Sometimes they make them harder. All right, the forklift, they've got that down at a cost of 35. Okay, they've got depreciation on it of 23. And then they've got a sales price of 5. So our gain here is 5 minus 12, right? The adjusted basis is 12, so it's not even a gain, it is a loss, right? And that loss is going to be a 1231 loss, and you might remember 1231 losses are ordinary, okay? Again, we'll just take these one at a time, then we'll worry about any combining here. Finally, we get to the bin, right? The bin, the cost was 87, okay? And it's depreciated by 34,000, okay? And it's sold for 60. So our gain is amount realized 60 minus the adjusted basis 53, the 87 minus the 34. That gives us a gain of 7, right? And this is where they made the problem too easy because again, that entire gain is going to be ordinary income because we're trying to recapture under 1245, right? And we have 34 of depreciation, so that turns all 7 of the gain into ordinary income. Now, the second question they ask you, the 73B question, it says, assuming Sienna has no non-recaptured net 1231 losses from prior years, analyze these transactions to determine the amount, if any, that will be treated as long-term capital gain. What they're asking us to do there is do the 1231 combining. I usually don't put that on the exam, but we'll look at it here. If we had 1231 gain, we would combine that against 1231 loss. We don't have any 1231 gain here. So all we have is that 1231 loss, which is ordinary, and we have ordinary income. So in effect, we're going to be combining those two. And that combining takes place on a form 4797. 4797. Now, to add some complexity to this problem that the textbook took out, they used to have this in. Let's change this problem a little bit. Let's look at just the bin and say that the bin is sold for 160, right? Instead of 60, it's sold for 160, right? Now, the basis, again, is 53, the adjusted basis, 87 minus 34. Now that gives us a gain of what? 107, right? Instead of just 7. We can recapture 34 of that 107, right, as ordinary income under 1245. And that leaves us what? A remaining 73 of gain that will be capital gain under 1231. And again, to be in 1231, it has to be long-term. So that is 1231 long-term capital gain. Now, if we have that change on the problem, and we have that second question, how do you combine these? Well, then we would combine the 73 long-term capital gain from 1231 against the 1231-7 loss. Even though the loss is ordinary, right, under 1231, and the gain is capital, under 1231, you do combine those two. So then we're down to what? 66 of capital gain. They also refer in the 73B question, they say, assuming there is no non-recaptured net 1231 losses. What does that mean? Well, that means they do a look back. And that's why I have to say now, usually it's capital gain under 1231, right? Even beyond that combining where we took the -7 against the 73, they do a 5, and they look at the last 5 years and they see if in the last 5 years there were any ordinary losses taken by this taxpayer under 1231. Let's say there were. In the last 5 years, there was 4,000 that was taken as 1231 loss in one or several of those years. It was never combined against 1231 gain. Well, they now use that loss that was deducted in one of those last 5 years, right, as an ordinary loss. They use that to turn more of this 73 into ordinary income. So now we first went through the -7 against the 73. We're down to 66. And then of that 66, 5 becomes ordinary, and the remaining 61 is long-term capital gain. Why is that 5 ordinary? Because they do that 5-year look back and they say, in the last 5 years, was there any 1231 ordinary loss that was taken that was not combined against 1231 capital gain? I usually do not put the 1231 netting on the exam, nor do I put that 5-year look back. But otherwise, make sure you can do this type of problem, right? At least asset by asset. And with that change I made on the bin, where you have more gain so that part of the gain does become 1231 capital gain. So that's chapter 14, right? Problem 73, okay? We're going to go off to 2 more problems here. I can still see one of my screens there, 76 and 79. So I need a new page here. All right. So now we're off to 1476, right? 79 is a long and complicated problem. Right? Keeping an eye on the clock, right? We did a half-an-hour lecture, and then this part usually takes at least an hour plus, right? And to do the problems, we'll see. Maybe when I don't have the audience and the questions, right, it's just me. Sometimes it's a little more efficient, right? All right, chapter 14, problem 76. Just missing the book on screen, right? Sooner or later, we'll probably be doing that too. It says here on June 1, 2014, so 6/1/14, Skylark Enterprise, not a corporation, right, buys a building for $500,000, 100,000 allocated to land. So there's a 500 cost of that building, 100 of it is really for the land. And then it says the store was a 39-year real property, which it would be. And straight line method was used. The property was sold on June 21 for 2018 for 385,000. So 621.18, the amount realized, it's sold for 385. Now remember, amount realized is selling price minus selling expenses, but they haven't been giving us any selling expenses in this problem. Now our formula here, remember the three questions. Again, we're still talking about what? 1231, 1245, 1250, those three code sections. And we're still talking about these questions. What is the gain or loss? Is it ordinary or capital? And then what's the capital gains rate? All right. And again, they made this problem a little too simple, so we'll add some complexity back to it after we work through the problem the way it's written. Well, they put in this problem something we have to do back from chapter 8, and that is calculate the depreciation. Now remember, they told us that 500,000, 100 was for the land, and 400 was for the building. So what we're going to have to do is depreciate that building, right, by the tables that are at the end of chapter 8. Now, when I do this in a 10-week class, I have 3 exams. The third exam is chapters 9, 10, 13, 14. So usually I don't make the students calculate the depreciation. Again, I give them that depreciation. We'll look at it in this problem in just a minute in the solutions that are posted in Blackboard.